preface this by saying I'm not politically correct. I don't like political correctness, and I do not want to be acknowledged as a glandulally enhanced, visually impaired person. I'm a fat, blind guy, and I'm okay with that. It's who I am. Now, the other thing is, as you know, I don't want to be pandered to, and I don't think as people with disability we need to be pandered to. I think we need to be able to access those services we need, but that's it. When we start getting things handed to us because we're disabled versus having the accessibility we need to get through life, those are two different things. And if you don't like it, I apologize now. It's my beliefs and how things go. First off, I don't know if you guys have heard the story of the two shoe salesmen who were sent to Africa to check out whether there was a market. After some investigation, the first shoe salesman sent back a telegram, said, "Situation hopeless, they don't wear shoes." And the second salesman sent back a telegram, said, "Glorious opportunity, they don't know what shoes are yet." And so much in life is based on how we perceive the world around us. And when we're dealing with those kind of things, such as disability, such as things that hold us back, we can often get stuck in a rut of wearing that disability name tag. And we live in a society of labels. Those labels are often used when you're trying to remember a person's name. Oh, you know who I'm talking about, that fat blind guy over there. Oh, Matt, yes, that's who. And we live those labels sometimes. And that's the unfortunate part. I don't want to live those labels. Those labels are given to us for a reason. Yes, I'm fat. Yes, I'm blind, but I'm also a person. I have hobbies. I have passions. I have disappointments. I have things that I deal with in life. And that's all part of being who we are. Everybody in the world is disabled in one way or another. If we think of the word disabled, it means lacking an ability. Some people can't hold a tune. Some people can't do math very well. That is, from a technical standpoint, a disability. Some disabilities really get in the way. Some don't. But if we get on in life, we accept the disabilities for what they are, and we let ourselves figure out what we can or can't do. That's the big part. My story starts before I was even born. When my parents grew up, they both faced some very serious challenges, not them themselves, but their parents. On my father's side, nobody in our family's history had ever graduated elementary school. My grandmother recognized that, and she recognized the cycle of poverty, of lack of education, of many, many, many aspects of life. And she forced my father and my uncle to go through school. And to get their education, they both not only graduated elementary school, but high school, university, and did a master's degree. And she learned to read beside them as they learned to read. Then on my mother's side, my grandmother contracted polio. At a time when people who got polio were simply institutionalized, and that was it. But no, she worked through it. She sat there in tears with kids beside her, just barely able to walk. And she was barely able to walk too. And she learned, and she pushed herself so that by the time I was born, there was no sign of polio. She worked through all that. So when I was born, the umbilical cord was around my neck, and it cut off blood supply. I was born with cerebral palsy. Now, as a child, I grew up, my arm was up around like this, my legs were bowed, my feet were turned in severely, I could barely walk, I could barely do things. But because my mother and my father had that history of working through things, they were able to work that out. And I worked, and I worked, and I worked, and then finally got to school. In grade 3, a wonderful thing happened. They were going to put me in the slow class. which back then was called the retarded class. Now retarded, I told you I am not PC. Retarded, if you look it up in the dictionary, means held back. So something was holding me back, but I was working through it. And so my father said, you know what, he's not slow. So, because my dad was in teaching at the school I was attending, he had me talk to the psychologist and had me tested. 126 IQ points later, we decided maybe I wasn't slow. Maybe there was something else. And they were able to develop a plan. And this was back in the late 70s, where I could be able to finish tests, be able to do things such as recording the answers on a cassette tape, which is fantastic. So all of a sudden, this D and F student became an A student because I had opportunities and we figured out a way to work through it. Now, fast forward lots of years to the age of 27. I had the world in the palm of my hand. I had 2 degrees. I was just about to do a 3rd degree. I was working 100 hours a week, doing several different jobs. I was king of the world, which is basically what caused the meningitis I contracted. I ended up in the hospital. I was on death watch for 3 days. Not a lot of fun. But from that, I lost my eyesight. And when you lose your eyesight, the very first thing that happens is you meet the doctors. And the doctors tell you what you can't do anymore. Well, you won't be able to drive, you won't be able to do the music you were doing anymore, you won't be able to do this, won't be able to do that. And then in come the nurses in behind, and they basically reinforce what the doctors tell you. You can't do this, can't do that. And they'll tell you this while your parents are in the room too, and they'll say, we'll figure that out. And you start to believe that because these are professionals. These are people who have worked with people like you. So of course they know exactly what's going on. So I started to believe that. And I went home and I didn't do music anymore. And I didn't do anything except for sit around and feel sorry for myself. Because I was the blind guy. Poor me. Well, that wasn't going to work.
Oh, sorry, you were 27 at the time?
27. I was actually just about ready to enter in to do my PhD in music. Well, that just throws your world up over. And it's not a good time to have to deal with all that. And so for, I'd say, a good 5 or 6 years, I tried different jobs. I tried teaching, because that's what I had my qualifications in. It didn't work out as well. Teaching, people say, oh, you can teach music. Yeah, but if I'm here in the front of the class, little Johnny's in the 3rd row playing his trumpet like this, he's going to get carpal tunnel pretty quickly, and I'm the one who caused that because I didn't recognize what was going on. Well, so that didn't work out. So then I tried working at I'm not going to say the name of the company, it was a call center. No, I didn't do telemarketing, so get that right out of your mind right now. I'm not a telemarketer, it's not what I do. People call in for tech support. Now, when you deal with that, they gave me a wonderful 21-inch monitor. They really helped out, and I thank them for that. But I was facing massive migraines almost every day. I had my head in the toilet at least once while I was at work, throwing up. I lost immense amounts of weight. I mean, I was a lot bigger than I am now, and that's a good thing. But it's not the way you want to do it. And so I was starting to realize, okay, maybe that's not going to work because it is a very visual-based thing when you're dealing with bills, with tech support, things like that, trying to get information down. So that didn't work out well. So I finally decided I was going to teach English in Korea. That's what I'm going to do. I can do that. That'll be fun. It'll be great. I'll get out in the world. Fantastic. So I found myself a job. I had bought myself a $1,000 non-refundable plane ticket. I got rid of my furniture. I got rid of everything. Got rid of my apartment. Got rid of my job. 4 days before I left, I got a call because I sent in my passport photo. They needed that for the visa application. What are those things on your eyes? Oh, they're just bumps. They're not contagious, it's fine. And why is that one eye pointed over in a different direction? Well, it's because I'm blind. Oh, well, we don't like that, and we're not going to hire you after all. Well, if that wasn't the low of the low I needed, I was devastated. Financially, in life, in everything. I had nothing. And that was possibly the lowest point in my life, but that was the impetus I needed to get going and realize my true disabilities, what I had to deal with truthfully. I was in denial about my eyesight. Actually, I drove for 6 months like this. As far as I know, I didn't cause accidents. I haven't received any lawsuits, but I drove for 6 months like this, and I was in denial about a lot of what I was facing. But it gave me a chance. When I applied for my disability pension, I got on disability pension, and it allowed me to kind of analyze where I was. And I was still, at that point, believing what I was told. I wasn't going to do music anymore. I wasn't going to do this and that. But when people tell you you can't do things other than from a legal standpoint, such as driving, that I understand. I accept that. And that's a legal point, and I'm not going to drive. I'll drive a go-kart. That's legal still. You don't need a license to do that. I'll do that. But there's a lot of things that you have to find out for yourself that you can do. That's the important part. Now, when people are facing changes in who they are, they go through 3 stages of change. Now, you guys have heard this one before. Pastor Kim was talking about this on Sunday. It was a wonderful description. The first stage of change is where you go through what are called the endings. Okay? You end your previous life. You lament the endings of these things that are happening. I lamented the ending of my driving career. I lamented the music I lost, the ability to sight read and to do these things. I lamented the fact that I didn't have the energy to get through a day anymore. That was a big one, because when you're a type A personality, being told you can't do your type A things anymore, not a good thing. A lot of disabled people get stuck in the endings, and that's it. If you're lucky and if you have half a brain in your head, you can get into what the next stage, which is called the neutral zone. Neutral zone is a wonderful time of creativity, of learning how to deal with things, of relearning how you did things previously. You're inspired to be more creative in how you can do new things. It's a great time. A lot of people who get past the endings get stuck in the neutral zone. They try different things, but they don't move on. They don't grab onto them and ride it out. And I'm not a hero. I'm not anyone who is inspiring. I'm somebody who has gone on to the 3rd stage. I have literally and metaphorically fallen flat in my face trying things. And it's not fun. And failure can often hold people back from trying new things. The 3rd stage is what's called the new beginnings. And the new beginnings is where you finally get some of that stability again. Because your life does these great big waves of highs and lows. And then you start in the neutral zone, it starts to get a little less, but it's still, you're facing highs and lows. And when you get in the new beginnings, things start to do this, which is what normal life is about. Little highs, little lows. And you start to figure out what you can do again. And these are the people who are considered to be exceptional, inspiring, people we need to celebrate because they're normal. These are disabled people who are leading normal lives, and all of a sudden, they're put on a pedestal above the rest of the people. And this is why I entitled my talk, Breaking Expectations. Because finally, as disabled people, we have figured out what to expect of ourselves, not what other people expect of ourselves. But that's not where we stop. We then need to change the expectations of the people around us. Because it's one thing to be the blind photographer, a professional musician, to lead a normal life where I'm living pretty, well, I'm living alone, but I have a wonderful roommate who's been gracious enough to film me. But I cook my own meals and things like that. It's one thing to be normal, but it's another for people to treat you normal. One of the greatest compliments I ever received, and I receive it from one person more than others, but the best compliment I can receive is, "Oh yeah, I forgot you're blind." Because I'm no longer living the label that was given to me by life. I'm living beyond that label. And somebody will point out, "Oh, look over there, there's an eagle." It's fantastic. Describe it to me. "Oh yeah, I forgot you're blind." That's awesome. Because I'm no longer that label. When you have to face failure, a lot of the times we give up on it. I love to equate it to food. Obviously, it's a passion of mine. But when people have faced new food, the first reaction is, "Ooh, I don't think I want to deal with that." They don't even try it. They've already got a judgment call on this. If they're brave enough to try it, if they don't like it the first time, that's it. They're done. They're never going to try it again. Well, you don't know. You could be having an off day. My rule on any food is try it twice. I even did that when I was discovering I had an allergy to shrimp. I tried it twice. Both times it failed miserably, so I thought I better not have it anymore. But I did it twice, because it could have been an off day. But when you deal with failure, you have to get up, you have to dust yourself off again, and you have to try it again. If you can't do it again, maybe it's not for you. But you can't assume you're going to fail before you even try it. This is where the problem is. Now, music is a big passion. Obviously, I went through a lot of school to get there. And you don't spend that much time or practice in something if you don't enjoy it. When you're blind, reading music becomes an issue. And unless you are gifted with a syndrome where you have the ability to either memorize it immediately, to be able to process the chord structures and your role within it immediately, it's not going to happen. But through trial and error, I had to relearn how to read music. Now, my new way of reading music does involve learning the chord structure. When we sight read a piece, I'm not as successful as most, but we work on it. And I've relearned how to see shapes. Rather than each individual note placed on a staff, I see the shapes. I listen to what's happening around me and I'm able to make decisions. And I remember at one of my band rehearsals for the Brockville concert band, our director asked me, he said, "How come you keep playing this particular note? I mean, it works, but this note is written." I said, "Well, because I can't see the note." And I thought, well, I mean, I can change it. He's like, "No, just keep doing what you're doing." And it's wonderful to be able to have those experiences. Photography is the one that surprises a lot of people. Here's a blind guy working in a visual medium. Turns out I'm not that original. There are blind photographers associations, there are blind photographer competitions, and there's plenty of us around. I like to think I'm original. I ain't that original. But it's what is out there, are the ability to use what you have left and to celebrate that. So what I do is, because I see shapes and color, I'm able to see what looks good to me. So I take a picture of it. I have a digital SLR camera, so I don't have to worry about film, because trust me, I keep about 1% of what I take. Imagine doing that with film, I'd be broke in about a week. But with a digital camera, I'm able to do that. I'm able to use the technology that's there with the old school functions and controls to be able to set up and create art. And so when I'm taking pictures, I take a lot. Just recently, I was at the dog park. I took 186 photos. I posted 4 on Flickr. One was of a cat I photographed, that cat sitting for. The other 3 were from the dog park. 186 photos and 4 I kept. Not the best odds, but you know what? Those are 4 I'm happy with. And I'm presenting to the world. That's my contribution to art. A lot of people don't consider photography art. That's a different class. This is about breaking the expectations of yourself and of others. How I got into it is a very fascinating story. A girl I was dating at the time had a camera sitting, a digital SLR camera. I said, that is really cool. And she was puttering about getting a few things done before we went out. And she said, oh, well, give it a shot, try it out. Okay. I thought these things were horribly complicated because they got all kinds of knobs and dials, all kinds of things. And I thought, beyond that, I'm blind. And so I took a few photos, and of course, autofocus is my friend. And she took a look, and she said, actually, that one's not bad. Well, that just threw me for a loop. You mean a blind guy could take a picture that fast and it'd be okay? Well, that was fun. So it ate away for almost a year until finally I said, I have to do it. I have to find myself a camera. This is too silly to be without. So finally I found myself a camera and I started taking pictures. At almost the same time I started taking pictures, I met a friend of mine who wanted music lessons. In talking to this friend who has passed away recently, I found out he was a photographer. So why not trade lessons? I'll trade music lessons, he'll give me photography lessons. Great! He gave me a few tips, started getting some real success. So I finally put together my somewhat business, not really business, but it's fun, of Matthew Wilson Blind Photographer. It raises a lot of eyebrows, but you know what? It's my passion. Anyone can tell you what you can or can't do, but it is you that can decide whether to believe it or not. I'm going to show you a video of some of my photography, and in the video is some music that was recorded after I had lost my eyesight. Not many people can do that. It's kind of cool, and I don't mind talking about this. This video is not meant to brag so much, but to show possibilities. That blind people can work in visual medias. That you can do things that doctors say you can't do. Feel free to fall on your face. Feel free to get up and dust yourself off. Feel free to excite the possibilities within yourself, not what you have been told.
Saturday night in jail, you don't want to go your way. Call your friends on the telephone, leave a message when you hear the tone. Will you never get back outside? And you
saw there, it says, live your life, not someone else's. That's the main point I want to portray in this. So in closing, the major point that I've not talked about is how change happens. Sometimes it happens by yourself. A lot of the times it's what others have inspired in you. The change to see myself as a musician came at a very low point in my life. I had moved into a room where I had previously been living in an apartment. I had given up on music, I had given up on everything except for existing. When a roommate dragged me to church one day, and in being dragged there, I met a wonderful lady who suffers from MS herself. She found out that I had a master's degree in music, and her first response was, oh, well, if you're a musician, we should play next week. It wasn't, oh, you're blind, well, how do you read? No, she saw that I was a musician first and a blind person second. And it was her who sparked that in me. As I mentioned with the photography, it was my ex-girlfriend who had sparked that in me. These changes come both internally and externally. So not only as disabled people should we keep our ears open, but we should treat other people with the same respect. Because as disabled people, sometimes we get in our own world. And we focus so much on the details, we forget to see the bigger picture. And it's the bigger picture that often inspires change. Mother Teresa has one of the most wonderful quotes in the world, and I'll leave you with it. She said, God only gives us what we can handle. Sometimes I wish He didn't trust us so much. Thank you.
It's okay with you to put that on YouTube?
Yeah, by all means.
Thank you.
By all means.